General Robeson, lots of wars and conflicts since the UN was created back in 1945. The mission was to keep peace in the world. It could be worse, perhaps, if we didn't have a UN, but I'm curious what you see as the value of the United Nations or lack thereof when it comes to keeping global security and to keeping peace.
Oh, Carol, thanks for the question. I mean, there's no doubt that we need collaboration worldwide to really be effective, particularly as time spins on the head of a needle point. It just moves so rapidly. It's not like it was in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. It's just things change in a nanosecond. So I think it's certainly a mistake to think about disbanding the UN. But the flip side of that is the U.S. has, since the wall fell in 1991, pretty much carried the financial burden and the monetary and material commitment to the world order. And so this really isn't new for President Trump. I mean, it's just stated in a more graphic, more distinct, more direct fashion to a larger audience. But the reality is we are sort of sitting on an immigration crisis. As last I read this week was 47 million displaced persons in Africa. Mm-hmm. That won't be 47 million going into Europe. 60% or so are displaced in their own country, but a large chunk of them are displaced to other places. So there is a lot of going on. There isn't a lot of unity. I guess the case in point, I would agree with the president's comment that you can't say we're going to fight Russia in Ukraine, but yet turn around and fund the war by buying Russian oil, even though it's through third proxies. So there are some issues out there that need to be addressed. There is the need for unity where not just Europe, but worldwide. I think we actually have more unity going right now in the Pacific Rim than we probably do in Europe in regard to partners against common threats.
Peter, I want you to come on into it with the investor perspective here. Is unity an investment play in today's environment, global unity?
I think we definitely went through some problems with the American brand and how people are going to trade. I do think one thing that should be a common theme is what we've been calling national production for national security. And the deal that you just announced earlier, it fits exactly that mode, that countries have to be producing more of their own energy, rare earths, critical minerals, and not just the rare earths and critical minerals, but processing them and refining them. I think that's a huge step everyone has to take. Europe fell behind in terms of their own ability to produce energy. So we might view it as a make America great strategy or make America great again strategy. But I think the rest of the world has to say, what did we fall behind on that are actually critical for our countries to survive? Maybe we don't need to make it all, but we need to have a modicum. So I think those investment opportunities, whether it's the Intels, MPs, there was the magnet company that the Department of Defense invested in. Mm-hmm. I think those are areas you should be scouring, not just domestically, but overseas, as everyone starts to try and play catch up to China on that.
Yeah, so Peter, talk a little bit more about this and we've had the folks over at MP Materials actually join us since Jim Litinsky, the CEO of the company, the founder of the company, joined us just after this deal was announced. Is this the right way to do it, though? Because there are those out there who say, wait a second, we need to let the free market do its thing. I don't want to equate exactly what's being done with Intel this is as the same as what's being done with MP Materials. But there are those folks who say this isn't necessarily healthy for capital markets.
Yeah, so I'd say two things on that. One is what you or I may like to happen. We can do that, but I think part of our job is to figure out what is likely to happen. So right now, it's maybe whether I agree with all of these things or not. That's slightly separate from do I think this administration is going to take these steps? And I do. And will Trump do what he can to make the companies that he invests in on behalf of the U.S. citizens successful? I think he will. I think he will jawbone people. He will twist arms. He will convince people to make these companies bigger and better. And whether we like that or not, whether it's traditional capitalism or not, that's not really the question today. I think that's something that probably needs to be addressed over time. But I think if you're looking at your portfolio, just because you don't like something doesn't mean you shouldn't be trying to scour the world for what's that next opportunity.
General Robeson, I'm curious what you think, General Robeson, when it comes to borders, especially when I think about the United States, so much of our history is opening up our borders, right? And welcoming in all of us were immigrants. Our family, right, can draw a line back to immigrants that came over in some form or the other. And I'm just curious, in terms of national security, is it just having a system in terms of dealing for immigrants, or what's your thinking about what we need to be doing to keep secure borders, but also not necessarily keep out folks when it's like, especially when the United States is so much a part of who we are?
It's a great question. You're absolutely right. But it's also not a new question. Just a quick story of, in 1992, when President Clinton was elected, between his election and his inauguration, he was asked a question about Haitians because they just run their president out of the country. And he said, that's who we are. Literally within weeks, houses were torn down and 2,000 boats were built on the Haitian shores. And that proceeded to be 3 years of us picking up Haitians, taking them to Guantanamo Bay, processing the 2% that make political asylum, and returning the rest back to Haiti in forced repatriation. So this is not a new thing, I would start with. Secondly, I'd say absolutely we want immigration. We need immigration in this country to be able to help us, particularly with some of the workforce. But what we want is controlled immigration. And I think that the piece that is somewhat concerning is when we don't know of the immigration that's coming in, how much of them are workforce, how much of them are drugs, how much of them are illicit actors. And so from a security standpoint, I think you have to take a step that says, how do we at least put some manageable effort into siphoning out who fits into what category so that we bring the right people in and not the wrong people in? And certainly every country in the world is suffering a bit from that right now with the amount of immigration that's occurred, going all the way back to the Bosnia-Herzegovina, ethnic cleansing, the immigration that came out of that, to Kosovo, and the list goes on, to the amount that's occurring right now that it's probably fair to say the world doesn't have a very good handle, not just on how we manage them come in, but how do we fund them once they get here. Our budget isn't equipped. Maybe it should be, but right now it's not equipped to handle large mass numbers like this, which is why you have so much homeless on the streets of so many cities. I don't justify, what's happened. It's just, it's sad that we're in the position that we're in, and that if we're going to bring them in, we should have a means to take care of them. If we don't have a means to take care of them, we're doing them and the cities and the country a disservice to bring them in.